Why does Piper wind up having to drop the tag titles? It feels like it happens pretty abruptly.
Because they were never supposed to be the tag champions. I mean, come on. It was, it was a one-off. It was a goof. Let's have a happy moment on TV. And now you got to take it off of them. It was never meant to be. And it was just, okay, we'll do this. And it was another week of television.
Well, I was hoping you would give me the real answer, which was he was diagnosed with cancer. And I assume that you probably had a conversation about that.
Yeah, but all that was actually even before, he had the championships, before they even won the championships. He had been diagnosed with this cancer, and Roddy had a rough time, and we had, a special bond there because of my wife's cancer battle, and we would talk, and he would go on about the different treatments and the fact that, he was fighting it, he was beating it. So when he had come back, he had already been diagnosed with the cancer, and he was just doing what he needed to do. He was going to fight. And one thing Roddy was a fighter, and he wasn't going to give up. But that was all during that whole time there. He was fighting it, and he didn't want it to disrupt his life and what he did.
Kevin Nash had an incident online with Roddy Piper. I guess Piper had a podcast, and he told a story about a backstage incident at WCW, and Kevin Nash didn't exactly remember it going down like that, so they had a little social media war back and forth. Do you know what the relationship was like with Kevin Nash and Piper? It does feel sort of out of character for him to be getting into little fights like this, because he had a similar deal with Stone Cold Steve Austin, who had a podcast on Podcast One, which is where Piper's was, and I guess Austin was upset maybe. That's the allegation that Piper has put out there about an impression that had been done on Piper's show, and there's back and forth, and Piper would say that Austin got him fired from Podcast One. Austin would deny that and say Piper was really just trying to create an angle. What do you make of these sort of weird situations with both Kevin Nash and Steve Austin just before Roddy passed away?
I don't know that Roddy really had a relationship with Kevin Nash. I remember the Twitter wars and all that. But then finally when they got on the phone and talked, amazing. Everything was settled. Everything was squashed. What happens a lot of times is people will remember things one way, their version, how they saw it. Same person, same scenario, they will remember it in a completely different way. Just like here, I'm giving you my version. I'm giving you how I remember things and my experiences during the time. Other people in the same situation may remember it differently. And I think that's all that happened. With the Podcast One situation with Steve Austin and all that, I heard both stories from Roddy. I heard, that Roddy had quit. I heard that Roddy was fired. Or not fired, actually left. But I heard that Steve was involved. I heard Steve wasn't involved. So only those guys know the truth. But when I heard both stories from Roddy, I tend to believe that, the first one was that, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to go do my own thing. And then he goes to do his own thing. And then it was, well, wait a minute, this other story came up. So I don't know if it was Roddy creating something.
Right.
To make bigger news, to make more of the splash when he debuted somewhere else. And I don't really know. I don't know what his motive was there.